No matter the industry, leaders need to hold these things dear. Who we serve, how we serve, why we serve. This is People, Process, Service, a Frontline Source Group podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome into another episode of People, Process, Service brought to you by Frontline Source Group. I'm your host, Tyler Kern, joined by my co-host, the president, founder, and CEO of Frontline Source Group, Bill Casco. Bill, welcome to another episode, man. Great to talk to you.
Great to see you, Tyler. How about those Texas Rangers, buddy?
All right, in the World Series, man.
We're doing the World Series.
Oh, I'm overly hyped and stoked about this. And so I'm going to try to keep my composure while we record a podcast, but inside I'm doing backflips because we've never gotten one of those, so it'd be pretty sweet. Bill, on previous episodes we've had on the founder of Teladoc on the podcast, and we have another just really impressive and incredible entrepreneur on the show today that I'm really excited to talk to. And it's not often you get a chance to talk to someone who you carry the product that they, invented around with you every day. But today we're talking to the founder of Hydroflask. His name is Travis Rosbach, and he's joining us from the Pacific Northwest today. Travis, thank you so much for joining us here on People, Process, Service. Just really, really excited to have you on and to talk to you a little bit more about your entrepreneurial journey. Just who you are, and then the people, process, and service that has gotten you where you are today. So Travis, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you guys for having me. Congratulations on your Rangers. I won't get too excited just yet, but I will cross my fingers for you.
Well, listen, Travis, you're the only guy in this right now that really can afford to go buy a ticket. So that's all I'm saying, right? So, the fact that you created this product and you can just an unbelievable knowledge and recognition when people talk about it is amazing. And so I'm so excited and grateful for your time and really look forward to talking about this. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm stoked. I'm excited to see how this goes. I'm looking forward to it. I love listening to your show. I've listened to a lot of the episodes and I really enjoy it.
It's two guys that don't know what they're doing talking about the stuff that when you drill into it a little bit, we're just having these conversations, and people like yourself that take the time just to talk about it is just amazing, and when I started our company, I started it around hiring one person at a time. And we have a service in the employment side and putting people to work. But when you drill back, you realize that you build these companies and ideas around people. And then you build something around a process, and then you give a service of some type. And one day we're having a conversation. We recognize that, it's not just business, it's life. And you go through life and you surround yourself with people, and you have people and then in your life or out of your life. And you live your life with a process as well. It's either you have a routine that you live by, or you get up, or you do things and you raise a family or whatever it may be. And then there's a service. There's a part of your life that you're giving back in some way, even though you don't think of it as a service, whether it is to the community, to your family, to growth, mentoring, whatever it may be. And man, one day it just kind of clicked, and we were like, holy cow, this is really a deeper deal. And so, you have, I think there's just an incredible story. And I was telling you earlier, I've listened to all your podcasts talking about it. And it's interesting because some people listen to it and they're like, oh, okay. And then I don't think they recognize part of your story that I found really interesting, which is the story of your neighbor, the beginning of kind of this foundation, which I think starts with the whole people thing. If it wasn't for this person and your neighbor, would you be where you're at today because of that story? It's just really interesting. So, and Tyler, I'm not sure if you've heard about this, but I would love for you to share it with all of us again, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really good, it's kind of a sad, tragic story, kind of. I mean, my neighbor died. I was 12 years old, and my mom was newly divorced. She had 4 kids. She was doing her best, 4 kids under the age of 13. And we were eating government cheese. We weren't really living above the poverty level very high. And my neighbor, however, had a brand new BMW, and he wore suits and ties and all of this fancy stuff that I had heard about or I'd seen on TV, but I didn't know if it was really real. And he just had moved in. He'd only been living there for a couple months, and then he died one morning. And his sister came to do the estate sale, and she asked my mom if she would do the estate sale because his sister had to go back home early. And so my mom and I were walking through the house with his sister, and she said, "Travis, you can have one thing in this whole house. What would you like?" And there were Rolexes and, suits and ties and all these things that were kind of like out of my 12-year-old league at that time. And I remember there was a like naked woman painting, and I was like, wow, I like that, but I've got Bo Jackson and Mike Tyson posters. I'm not going to take them down for that. And as we were moving through the house, there was the staircase that went up, and at the top of the staircase, the sun just was coming in and it was hitting this bookshelf. And I said, "I want that. That's what I want right there." And she's like, "You want that bookshelf?" I'm like, "I want all the books on it." And they're like, well, okay. I didn't know what they were. I couldn't see that far. I wasn't sure what they were about, but there was some sort of correlation that I could feel between the books and his wealth. That part of the house just seemed like kind of almost a sacred temple area where he would go and sit and read these books. And somehow his success kind of rained down from that upstairs room. And I just knew I had to somehow absorb whatever that energy was that was up there. And so got him home. They turned out to be Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, little Wayne Dyer thrown in. A lot of the 80s and early 90s who's who of business and self-help and things like that. I spent a lot of time in my room grounded. It rains a lot in Salem over in the valley. And I just poured myself into these books. And I just knew that somehow, some way, shape, or form, I was going to be one of these business people reading one of these that I was reading about in these books.
Right. Did you feel like as a child you were an entrepreneur inside, but just didn't know it yet? Or like did you want to build something, or did you tear apart radios? I mean,
I did used to tear apart stuff, but I could never put it back together. I'm not an engineer.
Right.
And I remember, I'd break open the old VCR that we were about to throw away or whatever. I'd break it open and look at it and be like, okay, well, that's interesting, but I haven't a clue what's going on. And I don't really want to learn, and I don't want to get electrocuted. So I'm going to leave this alone. But I did feel like there was something inside of me that sort of, I really enjoyed the branding and building of the brands. I enjoyed the growth of a brand. And then when I was 14, I met my dad, and he was living in St. Croix, the U.S. Virgin Islands. He's still down there, owns Cane Bay Dive Shop. And I flew from Salem down to St. Croix, and I got to take all of my Brian Tracy and negotiations and Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn and put that into an actual business at 14, and got to kind of learn what does and what does not work, and what's reality and what's not reality, and doing business in the Caribbean versus doing business in San Diego or wherever Brian Tracy was at that time. It can be quite different.
Right. So I remember growing up, my brother and I, one weekend we took apart like my car engine in the garage, right? And then tried to put it back together and had all the extra pieces. And I remember my dad saying, "Yeah, you're going to be in business. You can't be in engineering. You want to build it, but you're going to go a different direction sometimes, and you're not always going to follow the path." And I've read a lot of those books, and I've gone through that. And when you think about the people that influenced you, and even your father owning a business, do you think that influence opened up that door to make you go, "There's something like in my DNA"? Because I think sometimes some of us have it in our DNA.
I think that absolutely, in hindsight, there was a lot of, I know that there was a lot of that influence. My mom actually started a daycare right around the age of 13. And so she was a solo entrepreneur at that point. And as much as I didn't really consider what she was doing as a business, which it was one of the most difficult businesses in the world to run a daycare out of the back garage. I didn't really think about her as a business person. So that kind of wasn't an influence that was conscious, but subconsciously, I really appreciated the fact that she worked for herself and that she could be at home, even though she was out back in the we had a 3-car garage that was converted into a daycare. And I really enjoyed the idea that she was no longer a 9 to 5 employee. She was now a 6 a.m. till 7 p.m. employee of the daycare, but it meant that she at least got to be closer to the house. And I remember enjoying that concept. And then meeting my dad and seeing his business and seeing, like, he had t-shirts that had Cane Bay Dive Shop. He had hats that said Cane Bay Dive Shop. And I just thought it was really cool that it was almost like the Rosbach family crest was Cane Bay Dive Shop. And to be able to see people purchase t-shirts and hats and trinkets and memorabilia that had sort of our name on it, even though it wasn't Rosbach, it was Cane Bay. And that's really who we were. We were the Rosbachs of Cane Bay. That did stick for sure. I really thought that was a kind of a cool thing, that people would travel back out home all over the world wearing our merch, our gear.
So if you look at the time between I guess 2008 is really when, we'll just call it hydro, goes forward. And when we go back to that time frame, and I've listened again and read a bunch of stuff, but talk to us about that time in between that taking that idea and going forward. And we can get to that part, but the influence that was in between then. I mean, where was there something that really ticked along that way that you had tried different things, or what was going on with your life at that time?
Well, I had tried to be, I was a dive master and a dive instructor, and I tried to do that the rest of my life. And I found that it just wasn't paying the bills, and it wasn't financially beneficial. I wasn't able to really sustain, year after year living in St. Croix as a dive instructor. And so I became a boat captain. I ended up moving all the way up to 50-ton U.S. Merchant Marine boat captain's license, and it paid a little bit better. I ended up on some yachts that actually paid very well. But I missed business, and I kind of got tired of living so close to the saltwater and in and around the saltwater so much. And I have real fair skin, so I was always sunburnt. And then I became an airline pilot one day, and it just kind of hit me that I'm a pilot. This is what I'm going to do.
I'm sorry. Hey, hang on a minute. I just became an airline pilot. I mean, you just don't, what? How did you just become an airline? I mean, you literally are diving and now we're flying.
Well, I was on a yacht. Yeah. And the captain said, "Hey, I'm getting ready to retire and I want you to take over." And he told me, it was a massive salary. It was multiple 6 figures and predominantly in cash. And he says, I'll teach you how to hide the money. I'm like, that sounds kind of dangerous, kind of risky, but also extremely exciting. I like it, but I don't know about that. And I declined. I just said, nah, I'm not, I don't really want to learn how to launder money in the Virgin Islands and other Eastern Caribbean countries.
Side note, the IRS does not listen to our podcast at all.
That we know of.
Yeah.
We're very above board, everybody. Nobody's being paid here, so don't worry.
And so I was like, nah, I'm good. Thank you. And I quit. And I was walking down the gangplank for the last time. And I had this, oh my gosh, Travis, what in the world did you just do, dude? Like, you have nothing else. I was probably about 22, 23 at the time. And all of a sudden, a seaplane just took off from the water out of the harbor right next to me at a Christiansted. And I was like, that's what I'm a pilot, actually. And I moved over to St. Thomas. And I was in St. Thomas 2 days later, and I had $11 to my name and went to go get my laundry done so that I could go show up and get a new boat captain job. And so I'm getting my laundry done. I go to buy my macaroni, cheese, and hot dogs and my gallon of water. And I'm checking out. I look over, there's this flying magazine. And again, it was just like with the bookshelf. It was the darndest thing. Like the lights came on, the cherubs are singing, the harps are playing. I was like, I'm a pilot. And I went and picked up the magazine. I kind of held it up, and all these St. Tomian people were like, what's this little white boy doing? Like, this is kind of weird. And like, look at this. Like, can you believe it? They make magazines for pilots. And I couldn't buy my hot dogs, but I did get my water. I got my macaroni and cheese. I had to sacrifice one of my t-shirts because I couldn't afford to get my t-shirt from the laundry lady. And I got back to my place, and the landlord was knocking on the door, and he's like, you owe rent? Where have you been? I'm like, well, I've been on the boat. My ex-girlfriend was supposed to pay. Yeah, she didn't pay. Okay, well, I have 27 cents to my name right now, so can I pay tomorrow? And so I went and sold my truck and moved up to Salem, Oregon, back home to Salem. My great grandmother had just died, so I had a free place to stay, and got student loans and started flying. And that was April 2001. And so I flew from April till 2000 until September 11. We had to be grounded for a few weeks, but that's kind of where and how I became a pilot.
I'm just going to say it's like squirrel. And you go, you should be glad like a garbage truck didn't drive by, and you were like, garbage truck? And I'm like,
yeah.
I mean, first of all,
$90,000 a year in New York as garbage men. And I always
know that used to be a good analogy. It's not anymore. It's horrible. You're right. I mean, I think you're making like $140 here. Yeah. But the fact that you had that opportunity was huge to be able to jump and do something like that. Obviously, it was something that was a desire that you had. And then again, you had people around you in different ways. And if the girlfriend hadn't paid the rent or had paid the rent, maybe that would have been different. If the guy hadn't knocked on the door, that could have been different. Mm-hmm. Again, sorry about your great grandmother passing away, because that leads to another whole thing. But you had a place to stay, which mm-hmm. opened up another door. So these people around you are influencing you in different ways that you don't even realize, that are molding you into that next phase.
You're absolutely right. And yeah. In hindsight, like when I was there, I guess I didn't really fully comprehend the fact that like all of these people were really helping me. Even like I'd call the flight centers and I'd be like, yeah, I want to be a pilot. I'm going to fly those seaplanes that I just saw. And they have an opening in September, which was, 2001. And I wouldn't have made it anyway. It was much too quick. But a lot of the people who I talked to at the colleges, at the flight schools, were like, no, it's going to cost you $180,000. Unless you have any money, you can't fly with us. And so I called all of them in the back of the magazine. The very last one I tried, she says, oh yeah, we'll just get some student loans. Like, I don't know what that means, but I'm absolutely going to do that. And so sure enough, I moved back to Salem. I call her back up. I'm like, okay, you said this student loan thing. What does that mean? And she's like, oh, I'll send you the paperwork. And then my grandparents co-signed. They were both still working at that time, and they were making good enough money that they could co-sign with me, and off to the races I went.
That's just,
I was just going to say, it seems like there's like a natural curiosity to you that like when you, like when there's something that is interesting, or you look out at the world around you, like something that grabs your interest, you're going to run with it and you're going to learn about it. And I think that do you feel like that's an accurate maybe description of yourself, just naturally curious, naturally wanting to explore the things you see around you and find interesting?
I really do. I do. I think that if there's something that I'm even a little bit interested in, and I mean, again, I had no job. I had nothing else going on. I got the landlord knocking on the door. I had to sell my truck in order to pay the landlord and buy the ticket back to Salem. So I get back to Salem and I didn't have much else to, like I had nothing really. I had no job. I had no money. My girlfriend and I had broke up. And so I was ready to do the next thing, whatever that was. And it hit me so hard that I am a pilot. And I'm not necessarily flying airplanes. I'm not necessarily the guy who just flies airplanes for a living, but I am a pilot who flies airplanes. And so I naturally was drawn towards learning what does that mean to be a pilot, and how do they walk, how do they talk, how do they dress, where do they hang out, what's the psychology of piloting and being a pilot. And then I went to the flight school to learn how to fly airplanes. And when I put those two together, the psychology of pilot with, here's how to turn on and fly an airplane without killing yourself and everybody else, it really propelled me forward in the flight training world, because a lot of my fellow student pilots, their goal was to someday fly for the airlines, but in the interim, they saw this long, hard path that they had been sold to becoming an airline pilot. But first you fly airplanes, you teach how to fly airplanes, you put in your hours, you put in your months and years, and maybe when you're, half dead or even closer to half dead, you might go try to apply for the airlines. And I saw it differently. I saw it as, I'm going to go to the airlines because I'm a pilot, and I'll figure out how to fly the planes in the interim on the way there. And that curiosity led me to accomplish that, and in record time, technically.
Not only that, though, if you think about it, you actually had created a process already of how you go through these things. You did that with the books. You did that with learning and understanding. You did that with the dive shop. You did that with understanding how to become a diver, how to do, which moved on to the curiosity, going back to what you said, Tyler, the boating, to then become a captain, to understand how to do that. It's almost like it was a natural thing. Okay, now the pilot part, to understand that I'm going to go through this, to understand you're building out these process, which if you really fast forward and you think about the hydro, I just like calling it hydro. I don't like the word flask. I just like hydro.
I typically don't either. I don't like the word flask. I think whiskey, and I think Burnside Bridge, and I think homeless people, and I think I don't want to promote that.
No, I like the hydro word. It's probably trademarked already. But anyway, so then I'm thinking, because the story about your idea with that, again, goes to the same whole thing. It's exactly what you have actually done before with this process, if you think about it. In many ways, you had, again, the idea, which I'd love for you to share. And then I do want to drill in to how to get it produced and everything else, because that really is a combination of the people and the process around it.
Yeah, I think that the first place, I kind of did the same thing with rock climbing also. During 9/11, when we were all grounded, I moved over to Bend, Oregon, to go climb at Smith Rock. I really wanted to go rock climbing. I just had heard about it. I was like, whoa, that's cool. They allow you to climb on rock? That sounds crazy. I want to do that. And so I bought the Idiot's Guide to Rock Climbing, because I had bought the Idiot's Guide to Boat Captaining, and it worked. I bought the Idiot's Guide to Flying and Gliding, and it worked. And so I bought the Idiot's Guide to Rock Climbing, and I went into the number one store, Red Point Climber Supply, and I was like, I'm here to work for you guys. I'm a climber. And they're like, well, what about this, this, this? And I knew the terminology from the Idiot's Guide, even though I'd never actually climbed a rock before. I got the job. And then, once I had the discount, I could start buying gear. Then I could actually start climbing. And then by the time hydroflask came around, it was the Idiot's Guide to Business, and it was the Idiot's Guide to Marketing, the Idiot's Guide to Sales, the Idiot's Guide to Negotiation. And once I started to kind of acquire more and more vocabulary, then all of the other books that I read from business and negotiation, sales, and all that, micro specifics of business really made a lot more sense. And by that time I was really putting them into use also.
Right. So the idea behind hydro was you end up in Hawaii, which again, you're going to go to more salt water, which I'm just thinking you're just attracted to that. So we're in Hawaii. We've got these issues with the plastic bottles, and you come up with an idea and you're like, I'm solving it. That simple. Mm-hmm. And you don't think you make stuff and tear? Are you kidding? You're doing this like... And you did rock climbing, which, by the way, add that to the list. I mean, are you seriously right?
Well, and I just had finger. I have trigger finger in both hands. I just had one operated on, and the second one's come Monday. I'm going to get my left one operated on. So that's proof that I was a rock climber. I got trigger finger, you know,
a lot
25 years later. But yeah.
But and on top of it, you have this idea, and it's 2008.
Yeah.
You know, the Great Recession is taking place. Complete meltdown of entrepreneurial spirit in not just our country, the entire world is literally melting down financially.
Right.
But you're not worried because you've bought the idiot guide to building a business, which page 1 says get financing, right?
Yeah, right.
You're like, well, that's not going to happen. So we're going to move on.
I skipped that one. That one didn't. Yeah.
And I read you get on a plane and you go to China because you're going to have this thing made, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to go to China and you meet with these people and they go, yeah, we don't do that. We actually do plastic bottles. But there's a company in another part of China, they might do it. And you get on a plane to go there and basically get off the plane and you're like, here's the fair-skinned American. You don't know who you're supposed to meet with or where to go. And they pick you out of the crowd and they're like, come with us.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a remarkable day. It was incredible. Hangzhou is, I don't know how many people live in Hangzhou. Probably, it's well north of 4 million. And there's Travis. It's like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where I'm supposed to be. I don't know anybody's names. I can't read anything. And this was 2008, maybe doesn't sound like that long ago to a lot of us Westerners, but China in 2008 was a radically different country than it is in 2020, even the last time I was there. And so I really was the only Westerner out of all of the people at the train station. And so I'm very grateful that Natalie found me. And then, we just spent the next couple weeks going from factory to factory being told, no, that's not a real thing. We don't really do that. That's not the way water bottles work. The thermos was glass and metal. That's that. We can't do metal and metal with the vacuum. We don't do it. That's stupid. Please leave. And so we were denied over and over and over. And we would go all around. It's called Xinhua and Yunnan area of China, where all the metals are made. Most all metals made in Yunnan or Xinhua. And finally, I remember one guy, I remember very specifically, his face was like, whoa, that's weird. Like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. I don't like it. I think I do like it. I don't know if I like it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If you're going to pay for it, let's do it. And then we're like, oh, okay. Yeah. What do we do? And he's like, well, you got to go get these parts to make these machines so that we can put it together so that we can then put it on the vacuum. And so we started buying screws and nuts and bolts and started making the machines to make the parts to add to the machines.
It's like the day, just a normal day.
Well, I had nothing else. Like, I had sold my moped, I'd sold my surfboards, I'd sold my girlfriend's surfboard. Like, I had really not much else to go home to anymore. And like you said, the recession was just barely starting. We were just barely starting to understand what this thing might be. Sure, it was in the paper. Yeah, there was a little bit of, I don't like the term, but scuttlebutt about it. But living in Hawaii, it was a bit delayed because people would buy their tickets, they'd pay for their hotels, they'd sign up for their, excursions and pay for it. And so they'd have to fulfill that obligation, even though a recession was going on the mainland. So we were a little late to fully understand what 2008 was going to be like. And so, but when I was in China, I had a feeling that I really don't have much else to do right now, and I don't have much else to go home to. So I might as well be doing this now. And so I started learning about engineering and how to put machines together and how to bend metal and stuff.
So, Travis, one of the things that I'm thinking about as I'm listening to both of you, and both of y'all are entrepreneurs, and I'm getting to be a fly on the wall here and listen and learn from both of you, which is really really fun. But the thing that strikes me is that the entrepreneurial spirit that I notice is that you see maybe a space in a marketplace or a room to say like, you know what, somebody is doing this but it can be done better, or nobody is doing this right now and I'm going to be the one to do it, which takes a lot of guts in my mind, and or something else. But I think that there's something really exciting and really interesting just about that mindset of oh, nobody else is doing this right now, because there were people creating water bottles, right? But there was the BPA problem with the plastics, and then other people doing metal water bottles. As you tried them, you found like, oh, there's just issues with these, and I think I can do this better, which I just think is a really fascinating way to approach a problem, because lots of people would come up against that and say, oh, someone out there should do this better. But it really takes a special person and a lot of guts to say, I'm going to be the one to do this better than everyone else.
It was kind of a odd scenario. I did go into a sporting goods store to get a reusable plastic water bottle because that's all I knew. I knew that there was the single use plastic that was in the ocean. It was washing up on our beach in front of our house. And I was tired of cleaning up the plastic from the ocean. So I didn't want to do the reusable or the single use. And there was a brand, it starts with an N, and they were doing reusable plastic. And so from my rock climbing days, I just thought, oh, I'll just go get a water bottle and I'm thirsty. I'll just fill it up and I'll drink water. And I went in and the whole shelf, the whole wall, not just the shelf, but the whole wall was completely empty. And I said, what happened? And they said, well, it's this stuff, BPA. We're not really sure. The owner kind of freaked out. She probably went overboard. And so as a preliminary, preliminary measure against this stuff that could be killing us, she decided to have the whole wall pulled. I was like, well, who's going to fill up the wall? And the guy said, well, there's nobody. And it just hit me in the back of my head and my cerebellum, and it came out my mouth. I will do that. And I found that, yeah, there was an aluminum bottle and I bought it, and it was really expensive and the ice wouldn't fit inside of it. And if I put cold water in it, it wouldn't stay cold while I went out to surf. And my brother called and he's like, yeah, I found this new single wall. Well, he didn't say single wall because we didn't have double versus single, but he said, I found this new metal water bottle you should buy. So I tried it, and same thing. It was actually big enough I could put ice cubes in it and take it to the beach, go surf. I'd come back, the ice cubes would be melted. It'd be too hot. I couldn't drink it. I'd go hike up a mountain here in Oregon, and by the time I got to the top, it would be frozen, and I'd have just a chunk of ice. And so I remembered that my grandpa had a thermos that had glass and metal, and it weighed 800 pounds and it stunk, and it was just kind of not, it wasn't what we call nowadays everyday carry. It was a very micro specific coffee pot that you could take with you to go fishing. And that was about it. And so I figured, well, how hard can it be to just blend these two technologies together and, take a everyday water bottle that can hold ice and hold hot and hold even just room temperature is a luxury. I actually prefer like the lukewarm or the like sort of just tap water. And come to find out, yeah, like, well, no, nobody else has done that before. So it was a blending and merging of technologies, and the fact that, yeah, nobody had thought of it. It kind of perplexed me, but I guess I didn't know enough to not know.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing to me is that recognition of, and even just that willingness to say, oh, that's going to be me, I think comes from somewhere. And as we've had this conversation, I think we have a better and better idea the longer we talk to you, just like where that comes from. It's just that curiosity and that entrepreneurial spirit's always been there.
So as you're trying to build this product and have it built, are you solo by yourself doing this, or what have you built something around you, or how are you doing that?
Well, so I did have a girlfriend at that time, back in Oahu, and she was kind of like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about or what you're doing, but if you can figure it out, I guess I'll be with you on that. And if it works, I'll be there. And if it doesn't, I'm gone. And she ended up leaving
Okay,
multiple
that's code.
times.
That's code for if you make a lot of money, I'm staying, and if you're not, I'm out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And she was out, and
yeah,
that was fine because, we went on to make a lot of money after that.
yeah.
And then in China on that side, like I think one of the greatest successes that I had was going to that Shanghai factory that turned because I found that there was a factory that said they could do double wall vacuum insulated, or they said they could do an insulated water bottle for me. And I said, okay, metal. And they said, yes. I said, okay, I'm on my way to China right now. I'll be there, Friday. So I take off to China. I get to Shanghai, and it's a plastic water bottle factory. I'm like, okay, you guys said in this fax metal. And they said, oh, yeah, no, it's plastic. I said, well, you said insulated. And they're like, oh, yeah, you can put ice cubes in them. I'm like, no, I said metal. Like, I just sold my surfboard. I sold my moped. I'm here to do water bottles, metal. It says metal right here. You said, yes, right here, metal. Like, yeah, no, not metal, no, plastic. And so I was like, I need to probably leave before I go postal here because I don't know what else I'm going to do with my life because, this isn't a good scenario. And this guy came up and he grabbed my arm. He's like, I have a cousin in Hangzhou. He might be able to help you. I'm like, I got nothing else going. I guess I'm going to Hangzhou. I'm here for another couple weeks. And so, yeah, I don't know what that means, but help me get there, please. And then on the China side of things, I had Natalie and Michael, who at that time they were in this tiny little office in Hangzhou. And Michael was like, yeah, let's just get on the train tomorrow and go to Yun Kong and we'll go find the metal factories that can make your double wall vacuum insulated bottle. And I was like, great, cool, let's go. And it took a lot of doing. It took a lot of months to finally figure out the whole process to actually make the vacuums and make the bottles ready for the vacuums and things like that. And now he's doing $110 million a year internationally, making water bottles for pretty much all the big major brands. And so
Wow.
they're doing very well over there also.
Do you get like a Christmas card at least?
No, and that's the darndest thing. It's like I don't actually talk to them anymore, and it's really kind of sad.
Yeah.
There was a lot of kind of politics and stuff after I left Hydroflask. They decided to go a different direction, and he saw that as an opportunity to open up his own factory. He now owns one of the largest double wall vacuum insulated water bottle factories in the world. So they went
Yeah.
from one tiny little office to owning multiple floors on one of the biggest buildings in Hangzhou. So
Yeah, but think about that. Again, it goes back to, your interconnection with them, and then what they were able to take and turn from that led to something else as well. I mean, the difference you made and you think about the people, it's not just always about you as much as it is the differences you made in people's lives. And so you look back on it, and what you created, first of all, what you created and the idea, think about how that's changed. It's changed lives, right? It's changed even lifestyles, the way people do things, what they walk around with. We were in Park City recently and hiking a couple weeks ago, and we had them. And that was before I really realized there was a connection with you, right? And so then you start thinking about, I'm not going to walk around. I mean, it's just, I don't normally walk around with one, right? So, but then I was like, hey, this is actually kind of cool. And now it became a little bit of habit. And then when I realized, I'm like, holy cow, that's the actual deal. So then you realize, wow, it made a difference on people. But then you made a difference on people in a whole other continent, not just of a product, but even their lifestyle, the way that they're living, what they're maybe giving back to their families and everything else. And then the power of that all came from the Book of Idiots on business.
Yeah. 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 I really utilized a lot of the fan comments and the positive feedback that I would receive and that we would receive as we started to grow. People's lives were getting better from drinking water, and husbands were finding their wives more attractive, and wives were finding their husbands more attractive, and people were just working better. People were losing weight. They were drinking less pop, less
Yeah.
alcohol, less juices, and they were keeping water with them, and it affected their health tremendously. And as we would get those, positive letters, it would be 2 o'clock in the morning and I couldn't sleep, not knowing how I'm going to make payroll that day. And I'd read these letters and be like, well, I got to keep going. I can't throw in the towel and take off as much as I really want to right now. I have to keep going. And then I would get to China and I would meet with the factory employees, and to see the happiness on their faces, and to see the quality of life improving every single time I would go to China. And I was there almost every month, and it was better and better and better and better. And so I'm getting it here at home. I'm seeing our employees are, growing, and their families are growing. And then we have sales reps and we have store locations all over the world that would call me and thank me for allowing them to sell our product, because our product was keeping them alive and going during the 08, 09, 2010 days, where not a lot of people were buying a lot of anything at that point, but they were buying hydroflasks. And so it really kept me driving to just keep giving more and more of myself, because I was getting that positive feedback, like you said, internationally. And that felt really good. And it does feel really good. I wanted to hydrate the masses. I wanted a really cool water bottle that I could drink out of. And then I wanted everybody to use a really cool water bottle that they could also drink out of.
So I mean, everything. I'm still just kind of blown away on this, right? Uh, you are so extremely positive about things, and yet you have never. It sounds turned your back on the adversity when it comes to you. I mean, it's on your doorstep, which any entrepreneur has when it comes to how am I going to make payroll, how am I going to pay things. Your girlfriend takes off with all the money. You don't have money to pay for everything. Your employees are not getting paid at a time. You didn't let that stop you. You figured out how to do it. So when you think about it, I mean, as from a life standpoint, you've been hit from that from day one, right? And you've always figured it out. And I always like to tell people it is about that. When you're not, you figure it out. You don't. If you're a real entrepreneur, you always figure it out. You literally have just told the story about how every time it's been hit up on you, you figured it out and you keep moving forward. And I know jumping this is way forward because you think about the incredible service of what you have done to create this thing, but not just that, because I got to go back and there's all these different stories along the way that you've been doing this to build on it. But today, what are you? Tell us today. What is Travis doing today? Because there had to have been a squirrel that ran by after you got rid of all that stuff, and you said, there's got to be a better mousetrap here. What is Travis doing today?
Well, today I'm doing travisrosbach.com, and that's my legal way of doing business in the United States. And what I do with travisrosbach.com is a lot of advising. I'm starting to build courses to teach other people how to do manufacturing and how to do entrepreneurship. And I have everything from $500 to $100,000 year long programs, and I love business. I love building brands. I love building businesses, and I love giving back. And so I'm doing what I really enjoy doing.
Was it your mom or your dad that made you such a positive influence on everything you touch?
I'd say it was my mom. Yeah, she's almost overly optimistic. I would say there are times where I'm like, "Mom, I need you to just tone it down a little bit. Like, I don't think things are going to be that great." And then oftentimes they really do turn out that great.
Hmm. But when you
And
look around at the current landscape of business in the United States, from your perspective, what do you see? Are you optimistic? Are you positive about what you're seeing? Or, yeah, just give us your sense of what you think business is like these days.
Well, I as far as America goes, I think that we have a lot of work to be done. I think that we have to take a real good hard look at where we are and where we're headed, and look at our past, especially the last 3 years, and think about, are we gonna do that again? Are we gonna go that direction? Are we gonna continue in the direction of I hate to say demise, but we have to really start looking at this country as the greatest nation again. And I think that entrepreneurs are the best way to help solidify the fact that I want to keep this country, and I want to keep it the greatest country in the world, because I really do believe that. I believe that the United States is the best country to start a business and to own a business, to run and operate a business. But we need to really kind of take a step back and think about, what does that mean? What does that take? What do we have to do? We have to start more businesses. We have to start being more reliant upon America first. I think that outsourced a lot of our I know that we've outsourced a lot of our manufacturing, a lot of our IT, and I don't want to get too political, but I feel that we need to come back to more of America first goal. And I
yeah.
really believe act boldly and unseen forces will come to your aid. And I just hope that enough bold entrepreneurs and business owners step up and can help us accomplish that.
But I read it was about a year ago, and it's on that same point that the entrepreneurial spirit is a dying breed because it's not an environment that allows you to be the entrepreneur and to take that and to run with it like you did. And I have to agree with you. I think it's very difficult for this young generation, this new generation, to understand what it's like to build. First of all, they don't understand what it's like to build something, whether it's a company or a product. And then on top of it, that the government isn't really there to promote that. It's almost like they don't really want you to do that. And yet we're sitting with greatness and talent that took something and an idea and created an incredible product in something that now we all are used to. It'll be right up there with saying, a Xerox or something. I mean, you literally have a brand of something you created that is as well known. And I'm blown away after I did the research and understood more even about it. That it's no different than people recognize it like a Starbucks or Tiffany or anything else. And it's an unbelievable accomplishment of what you have been able to do. Not just the product. Travis, your story is amazing. I absolutely love it, and your attitude and positiveness. I want to tell you, personally, if I had been you, I'd been buying lottery tickets every time it got to the billions, because by God, your luck somehow just jumps in there. But and people think all the time it's luck, but it's not. It's hard work. It's determination. You have been to the ground and you've been to the top, and that's what it takes. And sometimes you got to do it 10, 12 times. And you know what? I love your story, and I love what you're doing right now, because that sharing of that, giving back to the people, and exploring that is a way for you to really tell that story over and over again. And I personally, I really am blown away, and I feel honored to have spent the last hour talking with you, and thank you very, very much.
I can't say thank you enough. That really I really appreciate that. I
Well,
still go
take
through
it for the grain of salt. I'm not that big of a deal.
Well, I still go through a lot of hard times. It's like life isn't just automatically easy for me now, and in a lot of ways, life got harder after success. And I've
Right.
often wanted to write a book about the day after. It's like, okay, well, here's the credit card that has no limits. Okay, well, yesterday I was eating macaroni and cheese. Today I have a credit card that has no limits. And now what? And it's not necessarily easier, but when it does get hard, I remember things like what you've just said, and it does keep me going. And I really, truly appreciate that.
Well, I really appreciate all your time. And Tyler, thank you for setting this up, and just really, really impressed. And I know you'll do great things. And I'm going to go check out your stuff that you're doing. And I'm sure there's stuff I could learn from you. And I would love to continue conversations. And I don't know that I'll find a hydro anywhere, but there's got to be something. There's got to be something I can come up with that I can say is going to be better. And at least I know you got the hookup in China now, so we're good.
That's right.
Yeah, if ever you need anything, let me know for sure.
Well, Travis, thank you again for joining us here on this episode of People Process Service. We really do appreciate your time and your insights today. And everyone, make sure to go visit travisrosbach.com. That's Travis, Travis, Rosbach, Rosbach.com. Go check it out and learn more about Travis and hear even more about his story and check out what he's doing today. Travis, thank you again.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Travis.
It's been awesome. And also, go Rangers, right?
Go Rangers. That's right.
You've been listening to People Process Service, a Frontline Source Group podcast. Remember to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or wherever you like to get your podcasts. For more information, visit frontlinesourcegroup.com.